Back with Michael Avenatti, attorney for Stormy Daniels. You made this prediction. You were proven right. How did you know it then that there was a tape, and what does it mean tonight?
Well, good evening, Ari. You know, there's not just one tape, there's multiple tapes. You know, I think ultimately when all of these tapes come out, it's going to be very problematic for Michael Cohen and the president. You know, I called for their release back in late May. We're calling for the release now. I agree with one of your guests in the assessment that this clearly came from Michael Cohen's camp, and I think it's the last flare gun, if you will, in a long list of flare guns, shots, if you will, aimed at getting Donald Trump's attention and telling him that the shoe is about to drop unless he brings Michael Cohen into the tent, to mix metaphors.
And that makes sense. We've definitely seen that interpretation. The other theory that I'll ask you about is that Donald Trump had perhaps the worst week of his presidency, given the credible accusations that impugn the rather bizarre display in Helsinki, as well as the ensuing things that he said, unsaid, and resaid about Vladimir Putin, and that this is some kind of massive distraction or is coming out from the Giuliani side. Your response to that theory?
I just don't buy it. I don't think it's accurate. I think, look, Ari, there's a series of tapes. There's more than one tape. That's why I called for the release back in late May of the tapes, plural, and not tape, singular. And, you know, again, I mean, the clock is running out on Mr. Trump, and I think this is going to be very, very problematic. I mean, this is the one guy, Michael Cohen is the one guy who has more information on potential misdeeds of the president than anyone else, well, with the exception perhaps of Vladimir Putin.
A big statement there, but not one that is different from what some former intelligence officials have suggested in various ways. Let me play for you Jay Goldberg, who represented Donald Trump before Michael Cohen, but they had a very similar role, speaking just moments ago on the beat and calling Cohen weak.
If you spend 5 minutes with Michael Cohen, you know that he's not strong. He's weak. It's odd to say this, but when he said that he would stand up for the president, I knew from talking with him for less than 5 minutes that he was sufficiently weak that he would cave in with respect to any wrongdoing.
Do you agree with that assessment? Do you know why Goldberg is saying that on television?
I agree 100%. Michael Cohen is not a general. He's never been a general. He's a corporal, Ari. And, you know, this was not a guy that was calling the shots. And this just goes to show you, you know, what I've been saying a long time. I mean, Michael Cohen was not smart enough or tough enough to serve in the role that he was placed in by Donald Trump. And eventually Donald Trump is going to pay the price for that. And this is another example, Ari, of the lack of judgment by Donald Trump and the people that he surrounds himself with.
Michael Cohen retaining Lanny Davis in this role, a longtime Clinton aide and a lawyer and a former White House counsel, is something we reported, something you tracked, something that seems significant. Lanny Davis is a huge critic of Trump because he says he's a liar who can't be trusted. Now he, of course, is working with Cohen, which would suggest against Trump. Take a listen to Mr. Davis.
I've never worked for a client that has lied to me or that I could trust not lying to me. That's the reason he can't find a great lawyer. It's because he has lied to the American people, we know that, but he's also lied to his own lawyers, and no lawyer will take a client who lies.
Are we seeing this new Lanny Davis chapter on behalf of Cohen this week? Is that why this stuff is leaking? And what do you think is holding them back from moving forward and trying to get a cooperation agreement and getting it done, if that's the goal?
Well, I think a lot of things may be happening behind the scenes here, Ari, that aren't necessarily public or have not been disclosed yet. But I think that you've seen a progression. I think you had me on last week, and I talked about the progression. It was either on your show or on your podcast, where, you know, we've seen a drumbeat now from Lanny Davis relating to an effort to rehabilitate Michael Cohen and a series of flare gun shots aimed at Mr. Trump. I will say this, and I have a lot of respect for Lanny. I don't agree with Lanny or don't believe him when he says he's never had a client lie to him in the history of his law practice. I'd be very surprised if that were the case. But look, I think that this is consistent. What happened today is consistent with what we've seen as it relates to sending a warning message to the president. I think that Michael Cohen has been placed on an island. I've said this in the past. I think it was a grave mistake by the president. If there was anyone that the president should have been looking out after, I mean, he's clearly looking out after Vladimir Putin. We know that, right? He's even inviting him to the White House. He should have been inviting Michael Cohen to the White House a long time ago.
Cohen retaining Davis also shows that he is looking for tough lawyers willing to take on Trump. You are probably known as the #1 person in that category. Would you ever consider representing Michael Cohen in any way, and have you ever discussed it with him?
Well, I'm not going to get into discussing what I may or may not have discussed with Michael Cohen. And I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to say no as it relates to potentially representing Michael Cohen.
You would not rule out representing your civil adversary in the other proceeding. You would not rule out trying to represent Michael Cohen in this matter.
If he was prepared to do the right thing and come clean and basically turn state's evidence, I would absolutely consider it. In an effort to disclose information and bring the truth to the American people.
Prior to this television interview, is he aware of your willingness to do that?
I'm not going to answer that question. What I will answer,
does that mean that it's likely yes? Because if it were no, you could just say no. You've never discussed it with him.
Ari, you are a very skilled questioner and a very smart lawyer, and you know that I've always thought that about you. So I'm not going to answer that question.
Not interested in flattery, sir. Just saying what it seems to you're implying is that this is something that is not news to him through this interview, but something that may have been discussed. Is what I'm getting.
Well, you can draw your own conclusions. Here's what I'm going to say, Ari. I recently had occasion in the last few days, by sheer happenstance, to run into Michael Cohen at a restaurant that I've been going to for 15 years in New York. And by sheer happenstance, we happened to be seated about 6 feet apart from one another. And during that run-in, Michael Cohen and I actually had a chance to converse. And we had a very, what I'll describe as a very positive meeting. And I came away from that meeting. Very encouraged by ultimately how all of this may work out. And we're going to see what happens in the coming days and weeks.
You feel encouraged based on your recent face-to-face with Michael Cohen. His retaining Lanny Davis sends a message as a Hillary person. Do you think, as a hypothetical, retaining you would send an even bigger message to Donald Trump?
Oh, I think it would send quite the message, and I think it would advance the cause of the American people as it relates to finding the truth 100%, and that's why I'm not going to rule it out.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.